For over 4 years, India and China, two of the world's most populated countries, have not had direct flights between them. This is surprising because in today's world, countries are more connected than ever, especially neighboring countries like these two. The last direct flight between India and China happened on March 20th, 20, and since then, no commercial planes have flown between them. As of September 2024, that's more than 1,600 days without air travel. A clear sign that things between India and China are not going well. But why is this happening? The reason for this flight gap is complicated and involves many factors, including border conflicts, political disagreements, and economic changes. These issues aren't new. They've been going on for decades, and they've made the relationship between India and China very difficult. A long history of border fights. India and China share a very long border, but they don't agree on where the border should be. This has caused problems for over 100 years. The disputed border is split into 3 parts: the eastern section, the middle section, and the western section. The eastern section. This area has been disputed since 1914, when British India, Tibet, and China met to talk about their borders. Tibet agreed to a border called the McMahon Line, but China never accepted it, saying Tibet didn't have the right to agree to anything. Today, China claims an area called South Tibet, which India says is part of India. The middle section. This is the least contested part of the border. There are some overlapping claims, but they involve Bhutan, a small neighboring country that has close ties with India. The western section. This area is the most problematic. A region called Aksai Chin, which is currently controlled by China, is claimed by India. Aksai Chin is mostly a desert and very difficult to live in, but China values it because a road connecting 2 of its regions runs through it. This road is important for China's transportation needs. These disagreements led to a short war in 1962 where India lost. Since then, the two countries have never fully resolved the border issue. Instead, they agreed on a temporary line called the Line of Actual Control, LAC. The problem is that both countries have different ideas about where the LAC should be. This has led to regular confrontations between Indian and Chinese soldiers who patrol the border. The 2020 border clash, how things got worse. On June 15, 2020, things took a turn for the worse in a place called the Galwan Valley. Indian soldiers went to check if Chinese troops had left a disputed area, but they discovered a Chinese structure there. A fight broke out, but neither side used guns because of an agreement to avoid gunfire. Instead, they fought with rocks and sticks. The clash led to the deaths of 20 Indian soldiers and an estimated 35 to 43 Chinese soldiers, marking the first time in 45 years that soldiers had died in a confrontation. Both countries blamed each other for the fight. India said China had built the structure in a place it shouldn't have, while China said it was reacting to India's actions. This incident caused a lot of damage to their relationship and made the border situation even more tense. The fallout: no flights, less trade, and fewer visas. After the 2020 border clash, India responded by cutting off many ties with China. It banned hundreds of Chinese apps, including the popular TikTok, and made it harder for Chinese companies to do business in India. It also became very difficult for Chinese citizens to get visas to visit India. While over 200,000 Chinese citizens got visas in 2019, only around 2,000 were given visas in 2024. This made it almost impossible for people from India and China to travel between the two countries. The economic effects were big too. India reduced its reliance on Chinese products, making it tougher for Chinese companies to invest in India. At the same time, India tried to boost its own industries, like technology and manufacturing, so it wouldn't need to rely so much on imports from China. For India, this was a moment to rethink its economic ties with China. Despite these actions, China still remains one of India's largest trading partners, and both countries know that cutting all economic ties would hurt them both. But for now, the relationship is tense. Before the pandemic, air travel between India and China was very common, with over 500 flights happening every month. But when COVID-19 hit, both countries stopped international flights, and they haven't resumed between the two nations since then. While the pandemic started the flight ban, the real reason flights haven't resumed is because of political tensions. China wants to restart flights first and talk about their other issues later. But India is saying that flights won't happen until China takes steps to resolve the border disputes. Both countries have different priorities, and that's why things haven't improved. Changing economies. India is growing fast, China is slowing down. Beyond politics, there are also important economic factors at play. The economic growth of India and China is moving in different directions. India's economy has been growing rapidly, with new infrastructure projects and more investment in airports, roads, and railways. Since 2014, India has doubled its number of airports and placed an order for 500 Airbus planes in 2022, which shows its belief in the future growth of air travel. Only a small percentage of India's population has flown on a plane before, meaning there's a lot of potential for air travel to grow. China, on the other hand, has seen its economic growth slow down. Fewer people in China are spending money on travel, and flights to many countries from China have decreased since the pandemic. China's population is also shrinking, while India's population is still growing. These changes are affecting the way the two countries view each other. China, facing more economic challenges, wants to improve relations with India to help its own economy. But India, with its economy growing faster, doesn't feel as much pressure to act quickly. This difference in economic strength is changing the way they deal with each other. Flights could be a way to start fixing the relationship, but it's not that simple. The mistrust between the two countries is deep, and neither side is willing to compromise. China wants to focus on economic recovery, while India wants to resolve the border issues before moving on to other things. The situation between India and China remains tense. Even if flights do resume one day, the border dispute will continue to be a major problem. Both countries have powerful armies patrolling the border, and there have been accusations of firing warning shots since the 2020 clash. This shows that the situation is still dangerous, and future conflicts could escalate. In the end, India and China will need to find a way to get along, whether through diplomacy, economic cooperation, or creative solutions. But for now, the relationship is stuck, and the lack of flights is just one sign of how difficult things are. Do you guys think India and China will ever resume their direct flight again? Please, put your comment below. We would love to hear your thoughts.
Thank you for making it this far. If you like this video, you might want to share it with a like-minded friend. Thank you, and as always, stay blessed.